This is Audiobook Caboodle YouTube channel. Click on the subscribe button and listen unlimited audiobooks anytime, anywhere.
Part 4 of Lives of Two Cats by Pierre Loti, translated by M.B. Richards. Section 12. The springtime of the following year. How pleasant my reminiscences of its sunny days. Very short as all seasons now seem, it was the last which held a charm for me, like the mysterious enchantment of childhood's days, passed in the same environment of verdure and bloom, in the midst of flowers blooming anew in their annual ranks, the same jasmines, the same roses. After my campaigns I joyfully returned there, to forget other continents and immense seas. Again, as in my infancy, I limited the exterior world to the old walls hung with vines and mosses which bounded my rambles, the distant lands where I have since lived seeming unreal as those of which I dreamed, having never seen. The far horizons fade. They vanish imperceptibly, and nothing is real to me save our mossy stones, our trees, our trellises, and our beloved white roses. At that time, I had built in a corner of my mansion a Buddhist pagoda, the collected debris of original temples. From the large cases opened daily in the courtyard in the warm sunshine, there arose that indefinable and mingled odor of china, from pedestals of columns, bas-reliefs of ceilings, carved altars, and moldy old idols and vases. It was interesting and unique, this unpacking, to watch these grotesque objects appearing one by one, arranging themselves as it were on the grass or the mossy pavement. All this assembly of monsters of far Asia, bearing on their faces the same frowns and grimaces they had borne for ages. Occasionally my mother and Aunt Clara would come out to look at them, astonished at their overwhelming ugliness. Pussy Gray was the most interested spectator of these unpackings. Recognizing her ocean surroundings, she sniffed all with confused memories of her native land. Afterward, habituated to dwelling so long in semi-darkness, she would crawl into boxes and hide herself in the empty spaces, under the exotic straw still smelling of sandalwood and musk. It was an exhilarating and beautiful springtime, bird songs filling the air, and Pussy Gray thought it marvelous. Poor little recluse, grown up in the stifling obscurity of my rolling home. Bright sunlight, balmy air, the vicinity of feline friends alike astonished and charmed her now. She now made long and exhaustive explorations of the courtyard and garden, smelling every blade of grass, every new plant, in fact, everything that sprang fresh and odorous from the awakened earth. These forms, these colors, old as the world, which plants unconsciously produce every succeeding spring, these immutable laws, perfectly and silently obeyed by unfolding leaf and bursting bud, were phenomena for her who had never known springtime or verdure. And Pussy White, formerly absolute and intolerant queen of the place, had deigned to share her domain with the forlorn stranger, leaving her to roam at will among the evergreens, the potted flowers, or along the promenade on the gray wall top under the pendant boughs. Pussy Chinese was especially impressed by a miniature lake so closely interwoven with my infantile memories, which fascinated her for a long time. There in the grass, each day higher and more luxuriant, she crouched close to the earth, like a panther intent on his prey. Doubtless inheriting this movement from her ancestors, Mongolian cats with uncultivated manners. She hid behind the Lilliputian rocks, buried herself beneath the vines like a little tiger in a miniature virgin forest. I found great pleasure in watching her goings and comings, her sudden haltings, her surprises. When she realized that I was watching her, she in turn watched me, posing in an attitude peculiarly her own, very graceful, but very like a Chinese belle, with a paw extended as if holding a fan, just as I have seen one holding an article raise coquettishly the little finger, and her droll golden eyes grew infinitely expressive, speaking to mine. Please permit me to amuse myself. Does it incommode you in the least? Look, I walk with lightness. I play with extreme carefulness. I go about with discretion among these beautiful green things that smell so sweetly. And this good air is so refreshing in this wide, free space. And these other strange objects that I see and turn high over us, things they call stars, that they call sun, and they call moon. Oh, how different from our trembling lodging on the ship, and how delightful to be here together in this happy place. This home, so new to her, was equally for me the oldest, the most familiar of all places on the earth, whose least details, whose feeblest blade of grass were known to me since the earliest and most impressible days of my existence. So dear to me that I am bound to it with all my being, so dear that I love with a love akin to idolatry the old vines and shrubs which are there, the jasmine, the honeysuckles, and a certain dielytra rose, which every returning March unfolds its precocious leaves, gives the same April roses, fades in the June sun, then burns in August heat, and seems to perish. And while Pussy Gray abandons herself to the joy of youth and springtime, I, on the contrary, knowing that all this will pass away, feel for the first time in my life shadows like those of evening stealing over my own life, presages of the inexorable night, the morningless night of the final autumn, never to be succeeded by spring. And with profound sadness in this courtyard, bright with sunshine, I gaze upon the two dear ones, their silvery hair, their mourning robes, my mother and Aunt Clara, going and coming, stooping down as has been their wont for many springs, to discover what flower seeds had come up, or raising their heads to see the buds of honeysuckles and rose-trees. And when their sombre robes vanished from my view at the end of the green avenue, which is the vestibule of our family residence, I am forced to notice that their steps are slower and less firm. Oh, time, perhaps near, when in the unchanging green avenue I shall behold them no more. Can it be possible that time may arrive? If ever they shall be gone, I have the illusion that it will not be an entire departure, so long as I remain there, recalling their presence, that, in the quiet summer evenings, I shall sometimes see their spirits glide beneath the jasmine, that something of their existence will still live in the plants they have tended, and breathe from the falling honeysuckle the old dielytra rose. Section 13. Since her life in open air, my favorite flourished visibly. The bare and unsightly spots in her rabbit-colored coat were covered with new glossy fur. She was less thin, more careful of her little person, and bore no longer the appearance of a witch's cat. My mother and Aunt Clara often stopped to speak to her, interested in her odd ways, her expressive eyes, and her soft, responsive trrr, trrr, trrr that she never failed to utter when addressed. "Certainly," they said, "this Chinese pussy seems very happy with us. No cat's face could show greater content." A happy look, in fact, even a look of gratitude to me, who had brought her to her new home. And the happiness of young animals is perfect, perhaps because they have not, like us, forebodings of the inevitable future. She passed deliciously dreamy days in most luxuriant idleness, extended on the warm tiles or the soft moss, enjoying the silence, somewhat depressing to me, of this abode where neither the contention of wind and wave or the terrible shock of cannon troubled her repose. She had reached the distant, peaceful haven, the last port in her short life's voyage, and rested happily unconscious of the end. Section 14. One fine day, without intervention, seized by some sudden whim, the indifference of Pussy White changed to a tender friendship. She came deliberately to Pussy Gray and rubbed her nose against her own affectionately, which is, with her race, the equivalent of a kiss. Sylvester, who was present at the performance, showed himself skeptical regarding its good intent. "Did you see," said I, "the kiss of peace?" "Oh, no, sir," he replied in that tone of accomplished connoisseur, assumed whenever any question arises concerning my cats, dogs, horses, or any other animals. "Oh, no, sir. It is simply that Pussy White wishes to ascertain if Pussy Gray has been stealing her meat." He was mistaken for once, nevertheless, and from that hour they were fast friends. They could be seen sitting in the same chair, eating the same food, even from the same plate, and every morning running to exchange salutations, rubbing together the tips of their soft noses, one yellow, the other pink.
This was Audiobook Caboodle YouTube channel presentation. We hope you enjoyed listening. For full audiobook, check out our playlist section. Links in description below.